Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Cage Talk. Today, my guest, we have UFC veteran. We have 2010 Comeback Fighter of the Year, WEC Middleweight Champion, Gladiator Champion, FCFF Middleweight Champion, UFCF Middleweight Champion. We have the legendary Ultimate Fighter semi-finalist. We have Chris, the crippler Leben. How you doing, bud?
Doing good, man. Thank you.
You like
Thanks
that? You like that intro?
That was quite the intro. I think you got everything.
I did, man. Of course, I've been following you for a long time. Love everything you did in the octagon when it was in WEC. If it was Ultimate Fighter, you've done everything. You know, bare knuckle. I mean, you are a true veteran for combat sports, and I do thank you for everything that you did, man. It is awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're a fun fighter to watch. Again, you had a lethal left hook. I mean, people just couldn't put you down, man. You were just a banger, and I do appreciate. And again, welcome to the show. Again, your awards. I mean, you had fight of the night probably like 2 times, knockout of the night I think 4 times. One of them was one of my favorite knockouts was remember Terry Martin, where you were him out. And then you were also the first non-title main event for 5 rounds. You were the very first person for that, so that's pretty cool as well. And again, you were also in the Ultimate Fighter season 1, the very first one. And we'll go through, you know, your career and stuff like that. So how did you get into fighting? What was your first kind of like step where you wanted to make this a career?
Well, I did a little boxing in middle school. Mm-hmm. I wrestled through high school. And then, once I got out of high school, there was really I wasn't exactly college bound, let's put it that way, So, and I loved wrestling. I loved competing. I loved the camaraderie of the team. I loved the gym environment. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, my brother was selling used cars. Okay. And he called me one day and he says, "Hey, Matt Lindland and Randy Couture are kicking the shit out of each other, in the mechanics garage at this car lot." And I would have said, "What? I'll be right there," So I shot down there, and that was Team Quest in the very, very beginning. I think I was the 12th student ever at Team Quest.
Okay.
So I was there from the very beginning, and signed up that day, and then never looked back.
Nice. Again, yeah, that was the beginning of Team Quest. Again, you Randy Couture, you got Matt Lindland, big wrestling background. So that's really cool, man. That's awesome. So once that happened, right? You got into the UFC. Once you got into the UFC, how did the whole Ultimate Fighter? Because again, this was the very first time that was actually, hey, we're putting live, fights. We're gonna follow these fighters. They're gonna be in the house. That was the very first time. So how was that proposition to you, and how did you adjust? Because again, there was a little controversy over there in the Ultimate Fighter.
Well, that first season, honestly, we didn't even know if it was ever going to air. They were filming it, just hoping. I think Spike TV finally picked it up. It was the UFC was hemorrhaging money at the time.
Yep.
And it was a real gamble for Dana White and the Petitas. Ultimately, I had already been fighting for, a few years at that point. I think I had just won the WEC title. I had just beaten Mike Swick, met Dana White for the first time. And, I was lucky enough that my coach was Randy Couture.
Okay.
So he kind of gave me a little nudge and said, "Hey, there's going to be this show. I think you should send a tape in for it," Okay. Mm-hmm. And at that time, that first season, you know, all the people on that first season, I don't mind saying it. I think it was the best. I think it was the best, had the most talent on it for sure. And I think that's because, that first season, everybody they took at 185 and at 205 were people that were already close to making it into the UFC.
Gotcha.
So all of us were already kind of knocking on the door of the UFC. Ultimately, thanks to Randy, let me know, setting a tape. I got an audition, and then, made it on the show. And the show propelled our careers. I mean, it changed the entire sport of mixed martial arts.
Really did.
Turned UFC, turned my name into a household name, much less the UFC. So it was pretty incredible how it all kind of worked out. Just kind of flash bang, quick. We didn't, had no idea the effect that it was going to take.
Definitely. And again, regardless if that didn't take off, I think your fighting style, the way you fight, would have taken off, because again, people love, a brawler. They know, they love knockouts. That's what people, and you tie in Chris Leben, and that's kind of almost like the very first thing they think about. It's like, man, he was a knockout artist. I mean, he was hard to take down. And at the same time, even when you were hurt, that wasn't the worst thing. When you were hurt, you were like the most dangerous. It was just like you just wing it. And again, everyone loved that. And again, I don't think there's any MMA fan out there that doesn't like Chris Leben. You get what I'm saying?
Well, thank you, man. Appreciate that. And I, for the most part, I always tried to fight that way. It was more important to go out and, have a war and lay it on the line than, to kind of chess match, tiptoe out of victory,
Yeah,
exactly. At the time, not taking anything away from the guys of today, because at the time you could get away with fighting like that. I think at the highest level today, the guys are such tacticians. The skill level is so high that you can't just go out there with a top 10 guy and expect to slug it out. That's why, we see a lot more of these quote unquote chess match type fights, and ultimately, that it is what it is. But I think at the time for the fans, it was a great time for the sport, just because of that entertainment value.
Definitely. Yeah, the game has changed. You're right. Absolutely. The game has changed completely. So now you just don't get just a random person where they'll just stand up and brawl, unless the person's a brawler. But usually they'll have their own style that they want to implement on you, unfortunately.
There's a couple guys that move forward, and are extremely exciting and can pull it off at the highest level, but I think it's becoming rarer.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you completely. Now, talking about your career, man, I mean, you had some stellar knockouts. I mean, you've been smashing domes for a while. What was your favorite fight or that you remember in your past that you loved? That was just like maybe like a straight up street ball. I remember talking to Chris Lytle, and he was saying that his Thiago Alves fight was one that he liked because he kind of lost himself in the fight. They were just trading and stuff. So
right, and I mean that's happened to me multiple times. Obviously there's the ones that people remember, like the Terry Martin, Vandelay Silvas. Those were great. Some other knockouts in the UFC, but my personal favorite fight was actually an amateur fight I had against a guy named Otto Olsen. He took second in Abu Dhabi, and I think he took second in wrestling for Michigan in NCAAs. Tough kid, but he ends up getting, he kicks the shit out of me for a round, gets me in a choke, and you can see on the video, I lift my hand to tap, but I end up passing out,
Oh, shit.
And the ref is on the other side, so the ref can't see it,
I've heard about it.
Somehow he tries to readjust the choke. I wake back up, pop out and like I fall across the ring because I'm basically drunk from being choked, you know, and somehow in that stumbling knock him out, you know. And it, you know, he was the hometown favorite. It was midnight. The crowd was just loaded drunk. And then all of a sudden you just see beer bottles and everything flying. You know, they had to sneak us out the back door afterward.
Oh, wow.
I mean, those kind of memories, you know, as a, you know, in my my early, I was 20, 21, 22 years old, you know, and my other teammates, my other Ed Herman was on that card. He
Remember
won
Ed
it
Herman?
as well. You know, we all won that night, and it was just a spectacular an evening. You know, it was huge for me. That was like winning the UFC at the time. You know what I mean? It was winning the world title, winning that little amateur belt.
Definitely, man. Again, you went with some legends in this cage. Okay, we talk about Vandelay Silva. I mean, you put him on his ass. How was that fight, man? Because that was one of the ones that, again, it's two fighters that have almost the same type of style, yet it sucks, especially from a fan perspective, because I liked you guys both so much. It's kind of like you didn't want to see that happen, but you kind of did. You're like, shit, I don't want him to get knocked out, and I don't want him to get knocked out, but they're going to fight, and the way they fight, they're good.
Somebody's going to get knocked out.
Yeah, you know, right? So it kind of sucks, but at the same time, you know, so can you a little bit elaborate on that?
Yeah, so what happened was, you know, I had asked Dana to fight Vandelay several times.
Yeah.
Because he was my hero, man. When I was an amateur, I used to, you know, catch the bus across town to this Japanese toy store where the guy would rent me these bootleg Pride videos, you know, and I really tried to emulate him early on in my career in his style. I mean, in Pride, that motherfucker was vicious, you know?
Disgusting. He was
vicious. I thought he killed Sakuraba, you know.
Yeah, remember? Oh.
You know, that being said, you know, the answer was no. You're not ready for him. You know, da. You know, he's too good for you. And then I beat Aaron Simpson. Then they asked me to fight Akiyama 2 weeks later. You know, and
a little victory, by the way.
And that was because Vandelay was supposed to fight Akiyama, but something happened. Vandelay got hurt, I believe. So, you know, I stepped in and took the fight, you know, and I beat Akiyama. So then I called Dana back. I said, look, man, I beat the guy you had Vandelay against. So,
exactly.
You know, and he was basically more or less like, well, fine, you know, and he made the fight happen. You know, be careful what you wish for, you know.
Exactly.
And I think I probably never trained harder for a fight in my life because you know, fear is fucking motivating, man. You know, and I was scared to death to fight Vandelay. You know, it's one of the few fights that I went in there thinking I was gonna lose, you know.
Really?
But in the preparation, I trained my ass off, you know, and the exact scenario that kind of went down in the fight, which is funny, like my coach, Burton Richardson, it posted a video, and it's us training for that exact scenario over and over again. It worked out exactly like we thought it was going to work out, like we had drilled. Never had a fight where the game plan actually worked the way it was. Like, you always plan for stuff, and then you know you make adjustments and whatnot, you know, on the fly as the fight goes on. But that fight from punch one worked out exactly the way we had planned, you know. You know, Vandelay throws that 1-2 hook, you know. Yep. We knew that's what he was going to come with. I just had to get him to pull the trigger, you know. So I think I threw an inside kick just to get him to pull that trigger, and then ultimately, you know, the tie clinch uppercuts, you know, it worked out. I couldn't believe it. I was more blown away that the plan actually worked, you know, like what the fuck? Like, what do I do now? You know? So yeah, it was pretty wild, man. It was a wild experience, you know. Being in there, you know, 20-something thousand people, you know, then, you know, I get in the cage and then all of a sudden the whole arena goes dark. They start playing
The
zombie.
music. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's iconic, man. That would give me goosebumps. I just remember back in the day watching him in Pride, and
that's about the time I started thinking, what the fuck was I thinking? You know, like what the. I'm freaking crazy, you know, like, and I got my family here. I told everybody to tune in. What am I doing? You know?
Do you fight better when your family is not in the crowd, or do you? Because some people find that a little bit more of a distraction. Some
You know,
don't.
it doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't.
I always tell people they get, you know, people, especially right now, they keep asking, you know, how do you feel about, you know, the, you know, because the corona, there's nobody in the crowd. It must be hard to fight, you know, with no people. And I'm, you know, Ultimate Fighter, there were no people as well, you know.
Exactly. Yep.
I've been in plenty of fights in other places where there weren't many people watching too, if you know what I'm saying. You know, here's the thing, man. When you're in a fight, you're not really concerned about who's spectating, right? You're concerned about not dying, you know? So, to me, I don't understand this. I get energy from the crowd, or I don't get energy from the crowd, or I get the big show jitters. Like no, man, it's just self-preservation. You know, once I get hit, you know,
that's it.
And you know, like you said, I have a tendency to get a little more dangerous once I'm hurt. That's just because I'm like, shit, I'm hurt. I gotta hurt them worse than they hurt me. You know, like I gotta. It really just comes, you know, it's fight or flight. You're gonna do one of two things. Once you're hurt.
Let me tell you, my friend, your fight or flight instinct is it's on point. I'll give you that. We've seen that so many times. But I mean, right now, after your career in the UFC, you were gonna do. I think you were gonna start Bellator, correct? And something that didn't fall through. What happened?
Yeah, so you know, I signed a contract with Bellator, and then you know, I went and did my pre-fight medicals, and I ended up failing them because of I had a heart condition, you know, which, you know, probably was from drinking and lifestyle. You know, for a lot of years there, my motto was everything in excess, nothing in moderation. You know, I was fucking train hard, party hard, go hard, you know, out all night, train all day, you know, and, you know, eventually, man, my ticker just couldn't take it, you know? So, you know, went into the doctor, you know, and, you know, my cardiologist did an echocardiogram. They let me know, hey, your heart is shot. You need a new one, you know, like no way you'll ever fight again, you know? So, you know, some time went by. I was on a, you know, list to get a new one, and then checked it again. Well, it's getting better. You know, it's getting better. Now we just you don't need a new heart. We need to put a pacemaker in, you know. And, you know, ultimately what had to happen was I had to stop drinking completely, had to stop doing any extracurricular activities, the kind that I used to take part in. Had to stop hanging out with a lot of the same people, and had to, you know, change my diet, change my nutrition. You know, I did, you know, everything that you're supposed to do, you know, all the, you know, people, you know, heart disease is the most common thing that people die from in this country. You know, more than cancer, more than anything, people die from heart disease. And, you know, I'm a perfect example to anybody that it is reversible, you know, because through changing everything, you know, I didn't get the pacemaker, you know, and she let me know that I was taking a risk of dying if I didn't, but they told me I couldn't train anymore, you know, and then my heart just continued to get better till ultimately I was cleared to fight again. And that's when I was able to go back and sign a contract with the BKFC and have a couple bare knuckle bouts.
Yep, you had again. I'm glad that everything again worked out for you, man.
Thank you.
You know, that's awesome. And then yeah, you had you went to bare knuckle again. You know, had Chris Lytle on. Don't mean to bring him up again, but I mean he loved it. He loved doing bare knuckle. And you had, I believe, 3 fights. Your very first debut was against Phil Baroni, right?
Yep.
That was a hell of a bro. So how's your preparation? Well, how's first of all, let me, I'm gonna too ahead of myself. So how did you like bare knuckle fighting? Was that something you preferred more than MMA because it was more focused on stand up, which is more your style? And
You know what? It's gnarly. I'll tell you that. It's gnarly. The locker room of that first show looked like a fucking Civil War med tent. People just leaking blood everywhere. The lacerations are incredible. Especially when you've got skilled fighters with no gloves. You're gonna get hit. You're in a fight. That's the bottom line. And with no gloves at all, you're gonna get cut.
Yep.
Now as far as brain trauma goes, I think maybe a little better for you. But as far as blood and gnarliness factor, I think bare knuckle takes the cake. That being said, it was really cool to be part of those first bare knuckle shows because I really felt like, the old days of the UFC, like almost like this shit's borderline illegal. You're doing something kind of wrong, and the sport was so big at one time, and it was gone for 100 years. To be part of that resurgence and as bare knuckle continues to have events, the BKFC is growing, getting bigger and better every event, for forever, I'll be able to say, I was there in the beginning. You know what I mean? I was part of that, and as a martial artist, the training for it is cool because, if you get yourself in a sticky situation, you get in a fight, you're probably not going to have time to throw on gloves.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, the difference between in any fighter will tell you this. The difference between a boxing glove and an MMA glove is huge. What you can do, what you can't do. The difference between an MMA glove and no glove at all is even bigger. There's no riding punches. Yeah. There's no covering. Everything is if you get hit by it, it's gonna hurt. So you got to catch everything. And I really enjoyed training for that manner of fight because when it comes to martial arts, I consider myself a purist. I believe in as few rules and regulations as possible and keep the fighters safe. And so it was neat to test the waters there and try that out and see how you know what I mean. See how my skills were applicable. See what skills were applicable and what skills were not applicable.
Well, yeah, man. Those are. You're talking about UFC gloves were 4 ounces, where you can actually block something compared to a bare knuckle where that shit's gonna slide right in. You're gonna get popped. It's.
That's right. Right, and you can wing a shot with a hand wrap.
Yep.
And a UFC glove. They're 4 ounces. They're pretty dense though, Mm-hmm. And shit, I broke my hand half the time in UFC gloves. Yeah. So no gloves at all. You gotta really focus on how you throw your punches, where you place them, mm-hmm. and the range is different. That it's there's a good a UFC glove is a good inch and a half thick.
Okay.
Boxing glove is probably 4 inches thick. Add 4 inches on each hand on your reach. That's substantial.
Yep, that's a big difference.
Your range, that one, when you train, you hit mitts every day and you spar every day, your range gets tuned in, especially at the higher level, gets tuned into, millimeters, where you understand what you're going to hit them with, what you're not going to hit them with.
Yeah.
That all changes when you have no glove and no hand wrap on. It's a different, you got to get a little closer, so that takes some time to develop.
Yep. Especially as fans, a lot of fans wouldn't know that, unless they've done it before or they're, into combat sports for a long time. But even that, again, that's really good information because I really didn't even think about the reach with all the wraps and stuff like that. But it makes sense, man. It does make sense. But what was I gonna say? But after bare knuckle fighting, right? You had 3 fights. after that, you went, like I talked to Frank Trigg, and now you're doing some referee, man.
Yeah, so refereeing, I did Herb Dean's course, you
Yep.
know, incredibly difficult, great course. Both
That's
Herb
what
Dean
Frank
and
told
Big
me too.
Sean are, they're gnarly. They obviously nobody knows the sport better than them. Um, you know, the course is so thorough. I thought being
Fighter.
fighting my whole life and coaching, I would have no problems with it. But ultimately, I think, maybe one other person passed. I'm not even sure about that. I may have been the only person out of my course to pass.
Mhm.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
You know,
Frank was telling me that he's like, man, you don't understand how many fighters go in there and how many fighters fail. Like, it's crazy.
yeah,
Because that was like one of my questions was like, well, wouldn't we want more fighters just because they've been there, they know, exactly what's happening? And he's like, no, actually, to be honest with you, it's like it's another level, man.
okay. So I think there's some benefits
Mm-hmm.
to a fighter for sure. Um, for example, I think the self-control, not letting your adrenaline get out when a guy gets hurt, to still
Yep,
be poised. Fighters have that. We're a little bit more used to the trauma and whatnot and being right next to it.
definitely.
I think also when it comes to reading an athlete, you need to know when that fighter wants out. You
Definitely.
need to know when they've quit, because repping really isn't cut and dry. You know what I mean? Like it seems like every show we're having this debate over whether a fight should have been stopped or should not have been stopped.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's some subjective things. When it comes to stopping a fight, for example, I think that there's a level of intuitiveness that comes with having been in there,
Exactly.
multiple times. That being said, just as not all who do can coach, and not all who coach can do, it is a different hat.
Yep.
Not everybody that's a great fighter is going to make a great referee.
You're right.
It's a very different set of skills, and that's something that I had to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought it was going to be easy, and I remember my first match that I refereed. Man, I was like,
How did that go?
When you're getting punched, you don't have time to worry about safety and everything else. When you're the referee, that's your job.
Yep, that's the only
You
thing you're
know,
focused on.
and you stop a fight too early, maybe you robbed a fighter of his opportunity. You stop a fight too late, maybe you robbed a fighter of a longer career
It's true,
and
man.
their health. So it's intense. It's intense. I love it. I love it. And I take it very seriously. It's I think I hold the refs in high regard now.
Mhm,
High regard. After having done it on the amateur level. Yeah.
What's your final goal? You want to be eventually get into the bigger pay, the not the bigger pay, but like the bigger events like UFC? Is that where your initial goal is to eventually do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not just the UFC, Bellator, LFA, all the, those high level shows. I want to have a career as a referee. My combatives career may be over, but my career in martial arts is not. And I feel like it should be a natural evolution for a fighter, to move on to something else, in the sport and grow and give back to the sport in that way. Those
I think
skills I've learned over the years, and be able to for me, judge, coach, referee.
I think you're right. I think that would be probably one of the best things, especially after your fighting career. Either you do UFC not even UFC, but commentary on the fights, or a judge, or I think that's the right step towards everything, just almost like the NFL. You see all these NFL analysts, you know, after they're done with football, and they go on to Fox Sports and they're talking about I mean, I think that's our should be the goal. Like,
right. And I enjoy, I enjoy the refereeing. A lot of people like the commentary. More power to them. I would much rather, be giving back to the sport in the way of, being in there with the fighters, with, taking care of fighter safety,
definitely.
Regulations and so that's where my heart is. So I really enjoy it, and I want to continue to do it indefinitely.
Definitely, man. And just keep it up, man. That's awesome. Again, like you said, there's some people that are made that can be coaches. I mean, that are good fighters but can't be coaches, and some coaches that are good coaches but can't be fighters. I think the same thing goes for refereeing, for commentary. I mean, I think every time Dan Hardy, maybe if you like him, I'm sorry, but every time Dan Hardy talks, like when his commentary, I was just like, my ears start bleeding. That's just me. Like, Frank Mir is awesome. I love when Frank Mir, he's just smooth about it. Like, you can tell he's really comfortable with talking about the fight, and he's easier to listen to. But again, that was just my take. Sorry, I just wanted to just throw Dan Hardy there. Again, man, I do appreciate you, everything you're doing for the sport. That's awesome, and we'll see you soon, man. We'll see you definitely in the UFC, and that'll be really, really cool. But again, thank you so much for giving your sweat, blood, and tears in the octagon. I mean, or in the ring. I mean, you are a fan favorite. You're one of my favorites. Loved watching you, support you all the way. Still watch your fights, and thank you so much for everything, man. You are the MMA legend, man.
I appreciate that, man. If I could just say, anybody out there that's listening, if they're they want to get some training in, they're in San Diego.
There we
come
go.
Hit me up, send me Instagram is the easiest way to get a hold of me. I think Chris Leben MMA is my handle.
Okay.
I'm here in San Diego. Right now, I'm at the arena. I've been there for several years. Phenomenal gym, huge gym.
Okay.
I am working now on opening my own place. The arena guys are helping me out with it and everything else. It's one of those things. Like I said, you grow up. Eventually you move out of your parents' house. Mm-hmm. So we're in the process of doing that now. So stay tuned for that, and then come on out to San Diego, get some training in.
Definitely, and again, there's a bunch of people that do watch the show, so that'll be really good for you. I see you're repping your shirt, the arena. I like it. But again, thank you so much for coming on, man. All right, I do appreciate it, and God bless, man, with everything you do, bro.
Yo, thanks for having me.